Hello everyone, welcome back to City Skylines to the Aurelia city. We will continue expanding the high-density district in this second half of the city, which is on the airport side of the river. We are finally going to finish the buffer zone in front of the airport. There is going to be some interesting landscaping, more residential buildings, an obligatory tram stop, and some detailed intersections. So lots of things ahead of us. Let's go build them. We are going to start with some infrastructure. As you can see, we are on the edges of the places that we built last time, and I'm also doing some infrastructure around this roundabout. This is the roundabout that's part of the highway exit that we built kind of a long time ago already. It was the episode where I showed you the color prototype for the interchanges. So it has been here for quite some time, just waiting for us to finally reach it with the city expansion. This is of course that multi-level station, the transfer station between the trams and the light rail, and I'm just extending, kind of improving these tracks for the tram that are going across the river and finally towards the airport. I really wanted to have these tracks go more towards these high-density areas because obviously it makes sense. I'm not really going to expand much in the direction towards the airport across that main avenue. There are just going to be some high-density towers, but it's not really going to be all that high-density area in general as a whole, right? So I really wanted to have these tracks kind of shift more towards these areas so that they can pick up the passengers there and obviously go towards the airport or across the river in the opposite direction to the downtown. So I'm preparing some roads in this area. They are definitely not going to follow any specific uniform shape. They are just going to be some organic curves because I really want to emphasize that that place is just the edge of the build areas and they are not really going to be all that super high density as all these other blocks. I also need to improve this roundabout because I obviously built it quite a long time ago. I did not have the node controller back then, nor the intersection marking tools, so I definitely need to do something about it. As you can see, I'm using quite a weird road in this place. I'm using some roads that I actually downloaded primarily for the Altengrad series because these are the roads that have the cobblestone, not the asphalt. And they are kind of perfect for these roundabouts because they are, this particular road that I'm using right here is a one-way two-lane road, but it doesn't have the parking spaces, it doesn't have any of those edges of the roads. I am later going to, I'm not showing it in here, but later I'm going to upgrade all these roads into the Vanilla Plus roads from the package of the Vanilla Plus roads, which is probably going to be linked in the video description because some of you guys have commented that you can't find it, so I'm just going to post the collection link in the description. As you can see, I had to put the asphalt, the ploppable asphalt underneath all this because, like I said, they had not the cobblestone, but the pavement texture in Aurelia, so I had to just make sure that it's all asphalt. And doing the intersection markings like this. It's kind of an unfortunate thing that the intersection marking tool does not work on segments because in this particular case I really need to also extend some of these lines into the roads because I obviously put the asphalt in there, the ploppable asphalt, which doesn't have any markings. So I will have to use the network line to just put it inside the roundabout. I'm not showing the complete process of detailing, obviously, because it's mostly similar to what we have seen with that the bus roundabout. And, from now on, I'm not really going to be showing these detailing processes in the time lapses all that much. I'm starting to laugh because I, again, forgot to put the crosswalk in here first. So I had to redo all these shapes after I made it there. So there's definitely something that's plaguing my attempts at detailing these intersections, and you are definitely going to see that in the coming episodes as well, because for some reason I always forget to put the crosswalks there first. And this is what I was saying, I just have to put this network line. I know that I should not be using networks to detail that much because I'm obviously running out of the limits in the city, but in this particular case it would have been really painful to detail this with decals, so I really wanted to just get it over with and use the networks. So this is going to be very important because now I'm going to do these high density or these tall towers. But I'm definitely going to space them a bit generously compared to the places on the other side of this main avenue road, right? So I'm kind of constantly checking, just looking into the bigger picture of this place, kind of trying to understand if maybe it's too many of these towers, or just trying to make it right. I have to admit that this place did not turn out exactly how I wanted it. Maybe I could have used some different towers here and there, but at the same time, I really wanted to have this place into like one project, so using the same towers all over again would be making sense. So I finally did this, just using some of these red roads for like the dead end roads towards the buildings. I think later I'm going to put some underground garages in here, like entrances underground and stuff. So, it's going to look all right. I really like how the tram tracks are just going to cut through this place. So, it's just not going to be bad at all. But I suppose, maybe some other buildings could have been in here. But overall, I'm fine with this place. So I'm definitely going to leave it as it is. And you will see later that we are going to do some landscaping around this area, which is definitely going to improve it quite significantly. This second row of these towers is already much higher positioned compared to, for example, this intersection that I did right there. You can probably tell by this pedestrian road that there is a significant terrain or elevation difference. That's how I can afford to put this pedestrian path underneath the tracks. The tracks are pretty much going straight. They are not going up and down, which is nice. I'm obviously trying to keep an eye on the grades for the tram, but in this particular case, it was not really a problem at all. In this area, as you can see, I used the node controller for making these crosswalks in there, which is a kind of a nice touch. People are going to be able to just cross that road and either go towards the airport or towards that the transfer station if they want to board the light rail, or they're just going to walk around, which is always nice. Now, returning back towards that high density area that we have been doing in the last episode, and I'm kind of going to create the edge of it, maybe. So I needed to do something right next to the roundabout, and that kind of calls for some interestingly shaped buildings. These rounded buildings that are specifically made to be placed near roundabouts are perfect, obviously. It's not exactly matching the perfect shape of the roundabout. As you can see, I left some spaces open, which I'm later going to just keep green, and I'm going to add some trees, maybe some other details. I'm not really going to spoil it too much. And I'm going to put this pedestrian path through these buildings. Now, these two buildings are like one object. When you download it from the workshop, you have these two buildings together. So they are already spaced nicely, so you can put the pedestrian path in, between them, and it fits perfectly. I think I did exactly that in some previous projects in the city. I am reusing these buildings quite a lot around roundabouts, of course. That's what they are intended for. So why not use it like this? And I'm also going to put the pedestrian path between those buildings to kind of connect it everywhere, because this is connected, as you can see, for the tram stop. By the way, this is another use for the node controller mod, because these tracks that are made by Akruas, they are already by default from the road editor. They have the smoothened corners, which is not something that you want all the time or every time. For example, in this case, when you connect it to a road, maybe you want to have the corners actually sharp. So that's exactly what I did with the node controller. I decreased the smoothness, and it made the platform longer, which means that I can have the overall space for the stop smaller. So I'm not going to waste that much space on those intersections for the pedestrian roads. This tram stop is elevated above that main avenue, but it's on the same level as the second row of these towers. So, it kind of connects these places nicely. It's not going to be all that over the top. It's just going to be like maybe a minimalistic tram stop. It's just going to have the platforms, some roofs over it, and some necessary detailing like this railing and stuff. And I'm obviously going to use some procedural objects to cover the asphalt, some of the gaps in the terrain, and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be mostly a minimalistic stop. I'm definitely not going to overdo it too much. because again, it's going to add to the overall feel that this is the edge of the city. Let's say this might be even considered suburbs, maybe like kind of high density suburbs, but definitely not the center of the city any longer. So this detailing was actually quite satisfying, filling some of these gaps and just making sure to do this right. It's kind of ironic, but sometimes when you do, and maybe it's just me, but sometimes when I do these not so large projects, I tend to detail them more than the big projects. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just the feeling that I don't really need to do it all that much. That actually makes me detail it quite a lot. I'm not sure how to explain it better, but you can see it for yourselves that I'm really trying to match everything together with the procedural objects. There's this little visual thing when you connect these tracks with some roads that have like the surface level done. It's then going to create that little triangle on the intersection. You can see that I'm trying to get rid of it in here, trying to hide it as best as I can. I finally used just the concrete slab that I have underneath the tracks. I also put it slightly higher, but on the side of those tracks. So it's nicely going to hide all the inconsistencies with the road, some surface painter here and there, and finally I'm going to do these roofs. Now these are the Japanese walkway roofs. I'm not exactly sure what they're called. I used them, I think, a couple of times in the city already. This time I'm doing it differently because I'm using the different assets. One with the pillars, and then I think 4 or 3 without them, so that I'm going to have the pillars, not exactly everywhere. And that's pretty much done. Later I'm going to add some trees, and it's going to be completely done. So now I'm going to return to these high density blocks, and I'm just going to pick again some random buildings that I can just put in here and finish some of these blocks. I think I'm not really going to do that many of them. I think I only did like 2 of these blocks, and that's pretty much going to be it. So I am showing it in here because why not? It didn't take all that long. I am kind of trying to match the style of this messy expansion that I already did in the previous episode, so that there is some consistency. I also copied this wave shape with these roundabout buildings on the opposite side in here of the highway exit, which is definitely going to look nice in this place. I don't really want to spoil it how I'm going to do the rest of the areas, but I do have some specific plans around it. So I'm not really going to expand the high density stuff past those the second half of this of these roundabout buildings. I'm just going to leave them like this, and we are going to see that some other time. In here, I wanted to just get some like dead end roads with maybe some medium density structures to really emphasize that this is the edge of the city, and there's just never going to be anything past these buildings apart from the airport. But the residential area just ends here. Now, I'm pretty sure that some of you are going to comment that it's a bit too close to the airport, that no one would like to live next to the airport. So that's kind of why I'm doing this earth wall, let's call it, which is nicely going to shield off the noise from the airport. Probably not for the topmost floors of those towers, but those I'm thinking that maybe they don't have like windows on the other side or something. So it's primarily intended to be like overlooking the river, right? Not the other way towards the airport. But even then, there are going to be like tall trees and everything. And this is the future, so maybe we have silent planes or something. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? It just looks nice. That's all the reason I need really in Aurelia to do any kinds of projects. So I used some of my past experience with the landscaping that I used for that larger landscaping of the edges of the map, and on a slightly smaller scale I did some improvements in here. This particular corner in here, I had some plans for it with some buildings, but eventually it's just much better to just do this kind of hill or mound in here. Maybe these are actually not natural. Maybe some of these were actually earth was piled in here because they excavated it from some of the projects related to the airport or some highways or something. So maybe it's partially artificial, like I said, to shield the noise from the airport, or maybe it was already here and they kind of fit all these infrastructure projects and the airport itself so that it's going to match the terrain without doing that many changes. I definitely want to continue doing this landscaping even further into some of the projects on this side of the city, because I don't really want to just fill absolutely everything with buildings. I think I even talked about this with the landscaping video, with the major map changes episode. And I also have some plans for maybe like lakes or more rivers or something like that. I probably spoiled it a bit there because I do have one specific plan for this area, but I have all the kinds of plans that I don't really want to spoil, right? So that's kind of a weird thing right now, because I already built in advance quite a lot in Aurelia, so I already know what some of these places are going to look like when they're completely done. And at the same time, I have plans, very specific plans for places that I haven't built yet. So I'm kind of walking on thin ice in here to not really spoil it too much. But anyway, I'm going to probably focus more on what's going on here. So as you can see, did the landscaping. It turned out looking all right. I used the technique that I was talking about with the landscaping video before. I'm trying to use the first tool with the landscaping, the arrows up and down, and kind of create these little ridges, kind of branch them out from the main ridge and just create it more natural. I know that the cliff texture that I'm using with Aurelia is not exactly all that nice looking, but that's the problem with cliff textures in general. You either have them good looking when you zoom out, which this one is, but at the expense of the detailed view. So I just made a decision to have the cliff texture look good from the bigger picture. I suppose I could play maybe around with the scaling of the texture, the tiling of the textures, which is now possible in the theme mixer too. But I just don't really want to bother with that anymore this long into the series, right? So cliffs look exactly how they did at the start of the episode, so that's just a start of the series, so that's just it. Anyway, that is done. You could have seen me just detail that roundabout, and this is the transition between the finished places that we did today and what was done after the previous episode. So as you can see, there is a huge change in the overall character of this area. The landscaping definitely improved this place very much, and it finally completed all this area between the river and the airport. You can see that it's completely done. There are these towers that are very cleanly cut from the rest of this high density area by the straight avenue. So I really like how this turned out, even though I'm not super satisfied with some of the specific places. Overall, I think this area is looking really good. Obligatory shot of the tram stop, of course. We can't live without that, at least I can't. So it's nicely used by people, mostly people going into the downtown. No one really wants to go to the airport. Well, not really no one, but not that many people. The roundabout, nicely detailed with the intersection marking tools, with the stripes, crosswalk, the chevrons, and obviously the traffic manager lane connectors are nicely done so that people can nicely use all the lanes. The traffic flows perfectly, so that's all good. As you can see, this place is starting to take shape. You can finally kind of appreciate the high density area and the contrast between these landscaping hills and the airport and the high density in the river, and everything is just finally starting to make sense, right? So in the next episode, I'm going to focus more on that hill area, which is actually an intersection between some of the roads that I did previously and this pedestrian highway that originates from the airport and just continues towards the rest of the places in the city. So there's going to be a medium density stuff, again, forming a contrast to the high density places. And I'm also going to do some interchange with that highway that goes from that hill, so we can have all those kinds of connections done. So a lot of projects that I still want to do here. And again, another shot showing this transition between the airport and these areas. I'm really satisfied with how fast I can do this expansion from now on, because in the last couple of episodes we really expanded the city quite a lot. If I was doing the usual pace of building, then it would have taken me probably quite a lot more episodes and a lot more time. Anyway, we are at the end of today's episode. Thank you for watching it. If you liked it, then you can always put a thumbs up underneath the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. I'm gonna see you with some next episodes. Take care and goodbye.